Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the Mint Door podcast. My name is Dr. Laura Schwint.
And I am Dr. Karen Findle. I almost forgot who I was.
And we are happy to have with us today Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy, who is a business prosperity coach, a motivational speaker, and podcast host of the Business of Happiness podcast. Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Tarryn.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be here. Thanks always, Laura and Karen. I'm so grateful and so excited to be chatting with you today.
Yeah. So we can't wait to get into things with you, but you are also an orthodontist and co-owner of Mbrace Orthodontics in Maine.
Yes.
Which is somewhere I want to visit. So I'm going to have to come visit you someday.
I already told you, Laura, you're welcome anytime.
Hey. And your passion is empowering business leaders and leaders of their own dreams to strive for inner fulfillment. I love that. And redefine success and happiness on their own terms. You don't hear that much in the business world of dentistry. So thank you. That's fantastic. I'm excited to get into this today.
Wonderful. Yeah, that is my passion. I've been all the things in my life. I've been so fortunate to have enormous success in dentistry and orthodontics in my practice. And I've had everything that society says should bring us enormous success, society's definition of success. I've chased that algorithm that we thought we should follow to be quote unquote successful. And it wasn't what brought me joy. It wasn't what brought me happiness. I learned through that journey that all those extrinsic motivators, all those things outside of us that we think will bring us happiness, don't. And this is my mission, is to help specifically women to discover that they have the power inside themselves to find happiness. And that when you tap into that resource, success just flows to you.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate coming onto your podcast because I think that this is a message that women, especially in dentistry, need to hear. So many of us live with this shadow of shame or imposter syndrome or fear, especially those of us who have achieved a certain level of success. I speak to many women who have the fancy house, have the great practice, have, a marriage, a solid marriage, or at least a marriage maybe that they're not super passionate about, but one that seems like there's nothing wrong with it. And they just feel so bereft of happiness themselves. And under that lies a lot of shame. If I can do all this, why am I not happy? If I have so much around me, why can't I find happiness? And many women feel like they're broken, like there's something wrong with them. And that, at least that's how I felt. I definitely felt like there was something wrong with me, that I couldn't feel that enormous happiness despite all the wealth and the opportunity and having literally achieved my dreams. And what I want so badly to let women know is that you are not broken, that there is nothing wrong with you. You don't have to lose 10 pounds to feel better. You don't have to grow your practice to feel better. You don't have to find something, the bigger, better thing out there to feel better, that you have that power within yourself. And that just having the resource to find it and to discover that power within you is enormously liberating.
And it takes a lot of pressure off, doesn't it?
Oh my gosh. Absolutely.
Yeah. When you say that, it reminds me of something that I've heard you say before. It's a saying of yours, I think, that it's why it's all about you and it's never about you. Can you explain a little bit more about that? Because that popped up then. That's something that I remember you said.
Absolutely. I love to say that. It's all about you and it's never about you. So we'll start with that second part. If it's never about you. We learn that in our practice. When you have a parent or patient, I say parent because of my orthodontic practice. So usually it's the parents who are complaining or frustrated or angry, or when someone cuts you off in traffic, or when your kid comes home and has a big argument with you. We tend to attach those external circumstances onto us and immediately go to a place of, what did I do wrong? Especially as a business owner. You know, I find this when a parent of a patient comes and says, you know, you didn't tell me this and you didn't explain this, and now we have this big problem. And there's a lot of blame and anger that we take on. And what I love to remember is, it's never about me. It's never about me. People's actions outside of me is usually a story that they're coming with. They've had a tough day. They've had a difficult situation in their life that they're challenged with. And they're just acting out of fear and anger and defensiveness. They're just looking for some sort of control, some sort of opportunity to feel a little bit better. You know, when we look at that vibrational layers of emotion, those low emotions, the lowest level are the ones of, you know, victimization. And to feel a little bit better than victim, we start to get to anger. And anger feels a little bit better than victimization. And blame feels a little bit better than depression. So those emotions are just them trying to reach for a better feeling. It's not about us. It's very rarely about us. So there's some freedom in there. And then the first part of it is, it's all about you, meaning you have the responsibility of your own emotions and thought processes. It's all about you. It's all about how you rise to that occasion in that situation, and not allow this external circumstance to attach to your authenticity, to your integrity, to your worthiness. You know, I think so many of us grow up thinking that we're not worthy of ownership of a practice, or the wealth that we can accumulate in dentistry, or sometimes we find some amazing opportunity that we've manifested, because one thing I know about women in dentistry is we know how to show up. We sometimes are the hardest working person in the room, and if you do that consistently, things come to you. There you see results. And so sometimes we get those results and we think, oh, I'm not worthy of this. I had this happen, Karen, probably about 2 years into my practice. I started my practice from scratch start. I had not one patient walk in the door on day one. And so it was laborious. You know, there's a lot of hard work to get this thing off the ground. And the first paycheck, not the first paycheck, but the first bonus check I wrote for myself, it was amazing. I mean, I finally had some money I could give back to myself after putting in, I think about 1.5 years I was into it before I could give myself that bonus check. And that bonus check I didn't cash for 3 months.
Wow.
For 3 months, that check sat on my desk until my partner said to me, Tarryn, I noticed you didn't cash. What's going on? And I discovered there was a little bit of worthiness in there, where I had told myself a story that I was enjoying this too much, that I needed to suffer a little bit in order to get that money, to cash that check. It needed to be harder. It needed to feel more uncomfortable. It was an old story that I had attached to myself that wasn't mine. And so that's where that first part, it's all about you. It's all about, what stories have you attached to yourself that are keeping you from feeling happy, from feeling joy, from feeling worthiness, from feeling deserving of the beauty and the abundance that's in your life.
That's so cool.
Yeah. When you talk about those things that you attach to yourself, I can't help but visualize like having a Velcro shirt and having things attached, and how if we keep attaching, how heavy that shirt becomes. And that if we can detach or even take off that darn Velcro shirt, how light we would be.
How wonderful would that be? I just had this vision of taking off all your clothes and running through, right? And being on a mountaintop. It's true. We attach so much of what doesn't belong to us
Mhm.
onto us. And it starts when we're, very little. It's so funny. I was talking to someone the other day and she said, I had a great childhood. I everything I ever needed. Why do I have all these old weird stories attached to me? Because I had all that I needed as a child. And I think that's another fallacy, that you had to have some kind of a traumatic experience in your childhood that gives you permission to
Mm.
struggle with happiness now. I think there's a shame for a lot of people there too, who had great parenting and a happy home, is that their struggle with, why can't I find that happiness now when I had everything that I needed? And, that's another aspect of this I'm hoping to expose, is to allow people to see that just because you didn't have something society deemed as enormously traumatic doesn't mean you didn't attach a traumatic story to your identity along the way. And it's beautiful to look at it that way, because it's never about you. It might have been a little boy in 4th grade who was just looking for a laugh and said, you're fat, or you have ugly hair. A sweet woman I was talking to the other day, she said, I always felt ugly my whole life. And I'm talking to someone who's in her 60s. I said, you're beautiful, Joyce. What do you mean? She said, in 4th grade, a little boy took my long ponytail and said, this hair would look great on a horse.
Hmm.
Can you imagine? It's not about her.
Right.
That story was never hers.
Mm-mm.
But she took it and attached it like that Velcro onto her shirt that you were just talking about, Laura, and wore it for 60 years.
Wow.
And that's where the it's all about you part is. We get to find that story, uncover it, recognize that it's not ours, and then let it go and change our perspective of what actually happened in that moment and get to learn and grow from it. And I think this has been so important for me, especially in business ownership and as a leader of a team, because I realized so many times my actions were clouded by stories that I was attaching to myself that never belonged to me, and limiting my ability to stand as a true leader, not just of my team and of my business, but of my dreams and of my happiness.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
It makes me think of something I just saw from Mel Robbins, something about it's more important to stand in your truth than to want to be liked.
Beautiful.
I just thought that was, standing in your truth. That's a beautiful.
It's so beautiful. And it's interesting because that's the part that's most elusive. What is my truth? And sometimes we haven't taken the time to look for it.
Right.
And once again, I find this in our profession. And Karen, I don't know if you agree with me on this. I think you and I had a conversation about this, where we've just put our one foot in front of the other all the way along. And sometimes we wake up and we think, oh my gosh, how did I get here? Did I choose any of this? And often we kind of just did it blindly. Like, tell me what to do. I want to be a dentist. Just tell me where to go, what to do. And then you show up and you do the next thing. And there wasn't a lot of time taken to reflect what matters to me. What is my truth? What is my definition of success? What is my definition of happiness? Or did I just attach someone else's to my story?
Oh.
It's probably so true that that's what we have done, because those questions that you ask, we should be thinking about these things before we even decide that we want to be a doctor of medicine or dentistry or whatever it is. That's the point. You need to ask those questions,
Right.
rather than, which I know I'm in that situation, that I only asked myself those questions once I was way far in it. Like, even once I'd left, it was too late.
Well, see, this is where I also hope that it's never too late, because we get to choose again. And the thing is, there was a passion there. There was something exciting when you were younger that sparked this excitement about dentistry. I mean, even for those of us who just put one foot in front of the other, I think back to when I fell in love with dentistry. It was the excitement of, artistry and science bringing together, and the promise of leadership and entrepreneurship and giving back and putting smiles on children's faces, all those things sparked a passion in me. But what gets clouded beyond that is the expectations of others that we perceive. Once again, it's not about you. We think people expect things of us. And I think, who is it? Oh, his name will come to me in a minute. He says, we worry so much about what I think, you think, I think you're thinking. Craziness. We get so wrapped up in what we think other people are expecting of us, and that clouds that dream. So sometimes all it takes is just stripping back a little bit and seeing, oh yeah, what was that resonance, that passion that I had? What was that? Go back to that. Because what I find with men and women in dentistry is so many of us have spent millions of dollars on our education, decades on our expertise. And to just throw it all away one day is not always an option. But there's a way to reincorporate those passions back into your craft and rediscover who you are. So I don't think it's ever too late to get in touch with who you are. In fact, I think it's almost imperative to go through that journey, to feel what it's like to be in a place where, this isn't it. Let me try this. Sometimes it takes those back and forth steps, but there's a magic in there, and there's opportunity when we can look at what was that passion that sparked in me at the very beginning. I love this. This is such an overused term and phrase, but did you know that namaste means the beauty in me sees the beauty in you? So when we have a passion, when we have somebody who we're drawn to, it's reflecting something back to us, a truth inside of us. We don't gel with everybody. We don't jive with everybody. But when we do, when we see that actress or that book or that beautiful painting or that profession that we get so excited about, it's showing us something inside of us, a possibility, a dream, a passion. And I think that still lingers in us throughout our lifetime. But giving ourselves the permission to see it as our truth is everything, because sometimes it's so clouded by these misconceptions of who we are. And once again, going back to that deservancy, going back to that worthiness, we don't always allow ourselves that opportunity to reach for that beautiful thing we admire in someone else.
I think that is something that you touched on, is that those moments, we need those moments. We wouldn't know happiness if we didn't know sadness. We wouldn't know comfort if we didn't know discomfort, right? And so those challenges, those moments, those are good times to reflect and say, oh, what can I do different here? I'm in a place where I feel a little discomfort. What do I need to change? So
I love that you said that.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that up.
I get that a lot. People think that happiness has to be joy and bubbly all the time, but you're absolutely right. It can't, because then we don't have the contrast. We have to have the contrast. And the contrast can be a beautiful thing. It can be a gift. It can be the gift of now I see what I didn't want. Now I have a more clarity of the direction I'm going in when I see what I didn't want. I liken it to a buffet. When you go to a buffet, we have all these wonderful options, and I can taste some of this and I can taste some of this, but we don't punish ourselves when we taste something we don't like. We just think, oh, that's one I don't like. We put it down. We take the lesson and we leave the pain. We leave the attachment to our identity. We can just know, oh, I don't like this one. Now I can move on to the next. And what a great way to live our lives if we give ourselves permission. Imagine if we could go through life and think, oh, I'm going to try this one out. Oh, not so much, but maybe if I put some sauce on it, then I'd like it. Oh, that's different. Or maybe if I tried the one to the left of it. Or maybe I identified coconut. I love the coconut in it. So what else has coconut in it? And not make it all about ourselves. We don't, ask ourselves the questions, why don't I like this one? Everyone else likes this one. It seems like the most popular dish on the plate. And we start berating ourselves and feeling, what's wrong with me that I don't like this one? We don't give ourselves permission to honor that truth that you were talking about, that Mel Robbins talks about. So that's the part that I would love for, especially for women, because I am a woman and that's who I speak to, but I think men as well, to just honor their truth, to give themselves permission to be whole in their truth and not have to allow themselves to accept the judgment.
Yeah. I'm going to remember the buffet from now on. Thank you for that analogy. It's a good conversation to have with kids. The buffet conversation. That's an excellent. So thank you for the buffet.
There you go.
You know, happiness leads me to the thought of, I know you work mostly with women, and as women, most of us are natural born nurturers. We want to nurture, we want to give. And then on top of that, you get the women that go into the healing professions, where we give and we nurture. And it can almost feel selfish to want to be happy ourselves. So how do you reconcile that?
I love that question, because I think that is such a deep core to so many women in the health professions. And you know, the magic of it is we're drawn to these professions because of that desire, that love. So first, just honor that. How beautiful is that? I mean, to have a passion for giving to others. You know, I think we don't take enough time to just honor that beauty in ourselves. We admire it in others, but we forget to admire it and love it in ourselves. That self-compassion, self-love is so important to happiness. And you're right, it begins to feel a little, wait a minute, is this selfish? I have another visual for you. Picture, oh my gosh, we're doing a lot of these events. Maybe I don't know why I'm having all these images of events of the buffet table. And now here's another one that could be at a wedding or something. But picture, you know, I don't know if they still do this at weddings, those towers of champagne glasses that flow into each other, right? And then they pour the champagne into the very top champagne glass. And that top champagne glass gets overfilled. And as it's overfilled, it overflows into the next layer. And then those champagne glasses can get filled up, and then they overflow into the next and into the next and into the next. And, you know, imagining ourselves as that top champagne glass and allowing us to be filled with what we need, that overfill of joy. How beautiful is that, to imagine being able to serve everyone else on our team, in our family, in our community in that way, and see that we can't do it from an empty glass. We can't fill everybody else's glasses without filling our own. And that's what we do. Isn't that interesting? We keep exhaling, exhaling, exhaling for everyone else, giving, giving, giving. And we lose sight of the fact that we could give so much more when we allow ourselves to take a nice deep inhale, when we allow ourselves to fill up with that beautiful champagne so that we can overflow to others. See, we got it wrong. We thought we had to deplete ourselves and give ourselves away, but we can be so much more impactful. So that beautiful desire of giving to others can be even greater achieved when we give back to ourselves first.
I love that analogy of all those champagne glasses. The slightly obsessive part of me worries that in a champagne tower like that, the glasses are going to be sticky when you pick them up. I don't know why that goes through my mind. I'm like, well, they're going to be sticky because champagne's run over them. But there are sticky points in life, aren't there? And like you said, that there are, you know, glasses that may be empty. And, you know, the probably there would be people listening to this who maybe at the moment feel like they are someone who is holding an empty glass. And I just wondered if Tarryn, if there was a time that maybe when you felt like your glass was empty, or maybe you felt a little bit broken, and then if there was, like, what did you learn from that point to be able to make the difference and make the changes?
Oh, yes. This is, I'm speaking about this from enormous experience.
Mm-hmm.
This is exactly how I lived the majority of my life, is feeling the need to give and give and give to complete depletion. And it was really interesting when I was doing this when I was pregnant. So with my two oldest, I remember, so that was my oldest is turning 16 tomorrow, by the way, which is so exciting. It's so cool to imagine having been in labor for the first time 16 years ago today. But, and here's the interesting thing. I'll start the story here. So we're recording this episode today on the 31st of March. My oldest was due late May, and my water broke on the 31st of March. And it broke because I was washing my body in cortisol, stress, overwhelm, because I was giving to everyone else. I was running my practice at the time obsessively, insanely, so depleted that my body couldn't hold on to this baby anymore. And I was completely ignorant to it. I had done what so many of us do, is completely cut my body off from my head. I was living all in my head and had forgotten how to feel emotions, my body itself. You know that feeling when you get to the end of the day and you realize, oh my gosh, I need to pee, and I haven't allowed myself to pee all day. I just forgot. And you're at the bursting point because you've ignored your body the whole day. I'd done that throughout my pregnancy. And here I was, almost 2 months premature and in active labor. And so delivered my oldest very, very early, and was back to work before their due date.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I know from experience what it's like to give and beyond there's nothing left. And that, Karen, was my biggest lesson. And, it's interesting when you said, I worry that those glasses will be sticky. I've learned to love the stickiness. I've learned to pick up the glass and feel the stickiness and feel that old thought of being worried about sticky, and then loving it and remembering what the sticky means. The sticky reminds me of the joy. The sticky reminds me of our humanity. Even in that moment when I had put my baby at risk, and those were the stories I was telling myself. I was not only beating myself up to give to my patients and my team members and the rest of my family, but then when I realized what my body had done to put myself in premature labor, oh my gosh, the guilt that piled on there. And it took me years to undo those old stories, but that was the beginning of my learning. So would I change anything? No. Even those hard times, because those hard times, just as you were saying, Laura, were my contrast that allowed me to see the truth, allowed me to see this is not what I want for me, and how ineffective I am when I deplete myself. I can't be my best for my baby. I can't be my best for my patients if I don't take care of myself. If I lose myself in the meantime, there'll be nothing left to serve them. And we tell ourselves that we need to keep driving harder, and we're good at it. Very good at it. We cultivate the skill and we take a certain amount of pride in it. We wear that as a badge of honor a little bit. And that's another thing that I would love us to start changing our language around, in terms of honoring women who've torn themselves down, instead of holding them and letting them know that they're safe and that they are not broken, that they're just going through this journey, figuring out who they are as well. And they're completely deserving of taking care and loving themselves.
That's
I love that.
Yeah. So, such a joyous time now. Your oldest turning 16, aside from maybe driving, that might be a little scary, but um, and you're the host of the Business of Happiness podcast. You are happy and joyful. And I want to know if you just wake up happy every day.
It's a great question. And the truth is, I don't. It's something I intentionally practice on a daily basis. Now, I've gotten very good at turning it around. I've gotten much better at it. And that's what practicing does, right? It allows us those days that were weeks, months, and probably years of unhappiness that it took a lot of work to try to work through, now can be minutes because I have intentional practices. But I'll tell you, Laura, I don't skip a day of my practice. I don't skip a day. And there are mornings I wake up and I think, so one of my practices is a gratitude practice first thing. And there'll be a day where I wake up and I think, oh my gosh, this is so hard. And the first step is awareness. I just had that thought because we do not have to own our thoughts ever. We are not our thoughts. We don't have to believe our thoughts. So I hear that first thought because some of them are just so entrenched in us. They're such old habit patterns. When you wake up, this is so hard. And I can hear that and separate myself from that. And I just think, oh, Tarryn, you need your gratitude practice. And sometimes gratitude is for this bed that I can return to tonight. Sometimes it's just that much. I can't reach for much more than that. But that starts the momentum of something a little bit better, a better feeling thought. And then I think, oh, yes. And these sheets were just washed yesterday. Oh, and thank you so much to my husband for throwing them in the wash. Oh my gosh. Thank you for my husband. Thank you that we get to connect tonight. Thank you that he lets me live. I mean, here we go. I'm suddenly rampaging. You start it, but it's because I've practiced it every single day of my life. And I rely on it because happiness matters so much to me. And I do want to just say this about the word happiness. I chose happiness to talk about because we all can imagine what it is, but it can spark a lot of fear in people. The word happiness is intimidating. I get that a lot from people is the business of happiness. What is happiness? And is happiness really what we're looking for? So when you hear that word, what does it mean to you? What is that? Does it mean joy? Does it mean peace? Does it mean satisfaction? Does it mean gratitude? Whatever that word means to you is what matters. And so it doesn't mean that I'm bouncing on rainbows every day. I love to, and I seek that, and I enjoy that, and I can get there pretty quickly, but I don't wake up with it every morning or just find it in every situation, but I reach for it always.
Maybe if you could give our listeners one more tip, like when something hits you smack in the middle of the day that jolts you out of your happiness, do you have a practice?
Yes. Oh, I have so many. All right, I'll give you one of my latest favorites. It's called the glass elevator. So I'm thinking of the glass elevator just because we were just talking about those emotions. So if we imagine our emotions on a scale, imagine that at the very lowest emotions are those terrible ones, the ones you wake up with where you feel just really down, or something hits you in the middle of the day and you hear blame or anger or resentment or judgment or feeling any of those attaching to you. And imagine climbing up that scale of emotions is maybe in the middle somewhere, is just kind of numb, like not really feeling anything, not happy or sad, just kind of even keel. And then as we climb up, there's a little bit of hope is next, or sometimes a little bit of optimism. And then as we climb higher and higher, we start feeling those elation and empowerment and love and eagerness and excitement. Like those are the very high level ones. So imagine with me this scale of emotions in a vertical pattern. Now imagine we all live in a glass elevator. And the glass elevator, like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you can see above and below and out all the sides. And when we're down low on level 3, we're down in that icky feeling. And so I'm picturing for a moment having an argument with my teenage son, which happens on the regular. By the way. One of those that can trigger shame and guilt in me in a heartbeat. And so we're sitting here in this level 3 low emotion in my elevator. And at any moment, I can choose to ride that elevator up. And when I do, I get new perspective. So imagine that glass elevator just going up, 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 up into the above the clouds and being able to see not just distance, but time and perspective, new perspective. Now I can see, oh, wait a minute. He's just 14 today, and he's not going to be 14 forever. Oh, yeah, he just had a really bad day at school. And this moment is just going to last this much. Look, into the future, we can have a happy relationship together. There's that possibility. And I can see I just had a rough day. Maybe I started this conversation a little tricky. But do you see, we get to take a new perspective. And I literally do this, Laura. If I find myself and I catch myself with that first step of awareness where I'm realizing, oh, this is not happy. This doesn't feel good. I'm beginning to get angry. I feel that shallow breathing. I feel my pulse quickening. I think I press the button because levity always helps. Boop. And I literally rise. I feel my body getting taller and I rise up and I just look for new perspective. Let's say it's a patient, an angry parent. Oh, maybe they just had a bad day driving here. Traffic was really hard. Or maybe they just had a lot of stress. They had to cancel their work pattern and pick their kid up from school, and this interrupted their day. Oh, I just get a new perspective. And perspective always helps, because when we are in the thick of it, we have the blinders on, and that's where those old negative thought patterns attach to us. And we start getting stuck in those old habits that we just are so used to, that we've practiced for so many years. But at any moment in time, we get to ride that glass elevator up and just get a new perspective. And one of the greatest perspectives is, it's all about me and it's never about me. Always, always. And it's true for all of us. It's true for every single one of us. So we've all been in that parent's position. We've all been a 14-year-old who had a tough day at school. We're all in the same boat. So we all deserve the opportunity for happiness. So it doesn't make me separate or elitist or different or more unique or more deserving. We're all like this. We've all had these experiences, but I just get the opportunity to get that perspective in that moment and pull myself out of that low vibration.
Glass elevator. I'm thinking of my right now. Ding.
There you go. Anytime you can just do it. And you feel ridiculous doing it, which gives you a little smile, which gives you a little bit of and you do feel a little ridiculous being down that low, like, oh, there I was again. I was just down low on one of those lower floors. Yeah.
That's cool.
Oh, awesome. So many visuals that I'm going to carry away today. Thank you so much.
So welcome.
Oh, so just hearing you and reading your posts and listening to some of your podcasts, I know that you operate daily from a strong sense of your core values. And yet this isn't something that we're taught in school or that is brought up a lot. And I know kind of reestablishing our core values takes a little bit of homework. It's not just something we can just think about. And so I do know that you have a workbook that you offer that helps people and helps them guide to start figuring out their core values. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how people would find that?
Yes, thank you so much for asking about that. I think that this helps many of us who are living in this very mental world, because when I first started doing this work, trying to understand myself better, I couldn't reach for the emotional, the spiritual, the physical parts of me. I had a very hard time. I was living very in the mental space because I was really good at it.
Mhm.
And so that's why I love this workbook, because it starts us there with the things that we're good at. As dentists, we're very good at doing a workbook, answering questions, kind of working through a project. And so this workbook is the beginning of an uncovering of who you are and what matters to you and what happiness means to you. And it starts with our understanding of our core values. And, it's interesting, along this journey, I've noticed when I ask someone, what are your values? What are your core values? We all have high values. No one would say anything less, but we've not taken the time to sit and think about what those values are. And Karen, this speaks to what you were saying earlier, is even when we're younger, when we're 18, 19 years old, we didn't take the time to sit and think, what matters to me? Not what matters to someone else, or what does society expect of me? What do my children expect of me? But what matters to me? And so this workbook is an opportunity to start that journey of uncovering who you are, especially when you feel like you've been lost in this journey and maybe lost yourself along the way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So we'll make sure and put a link to that in our show notes so that people can find that workbook.
Yes, absolutely. I gift it to all of your listeners because I think it's a great opportunity to start this journey. And in that workbook, you'll also find access to human needs psychology identifies the 6 core human needs. And so understanding your patterns in your life, why you've done certain things in your life to fulfill those human needs that we all have, and figuring out a new solution, a new vehicle for satisfying those human needs, but this time based on your core values once you get a better understanding of it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like it was a lot of work that went into that, and create a resource such as that is a big job. But tell us about what's coming up for you in the future and how our listeners will be able to get to know you better.
Awesome. Thank you for asking. Yes, so it's lots of fun. That workbook is an awesome starting point. And I have a workshop that I run, and it's a beautiful 10-week, 8 weeks, and sometimes 10-week course starting up in July. It's called Radiance. And so it's a support around rediscovering that dynamism within you, rediscovering the power within you, and tapping into what matters to you and what brings you joy and happiness so that you could start to apply that truth to your life. Sometimes we don't even realize the life that we've created for ourselves.
Mhm.
And what I truly believe in my core is that we get to create the life of our dreams, and that each of us has that potential. And we're already creating our life, we're already creating our reality, but some of us just don't realize the power that we have in it. And so identifying the beautiful parts that you're reaching for, identifying what you're actually heading towards, and then giving you the tools to do so. And so that's what I do in this 8 or 10-week course. It's called Radiance, and it's phenomenal. It's so exciting because it's not that I have all the answers. I actually don't. The truth is that each of us has the answers within inside of us. And it's an unlocking of that inner wisdom, of that greater intuition that we have within ourselves for the answers. So I love this course. It's my favorite thing to do. And I welcome anybody who's interested to please get in touch with me, and they can reach me. I think you'll leave some of the links in the show notes of the episode, but you can always reach me at the Business of Happiness.
Mhm.
Yes. Awesome. I just imagine that somebody coming to your course and the light is there, and that as they go through your course, it just expands and they become more radiant. It's just, thank you for that.
Wouldn't that be amazing to live a life of radiance? I mean,
Yes.
and I think so many of us think that's not options for us. That's not an opportunity for us, that's not the life that I am allowed to lead. But the truth is that we can be even better for our patients, for our families, if we give ourselves that permission to actually live a life of radiance. And how fun would that be to choose radiance off of the buffet table?
Yes. I think it would taste divine.
There you go.
Fantastic. Well, this has been a wonderful, happy podcast. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and insight with us and the world. We appreciate you so much, all you do. And like we said, we will include in our show notes all the links to the Business of Happiness and Dr. Tarryn MacCarthy. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. And thank you for all you guys are doing. I really honor you. And I'm so excited for this great platform. You guys are doing amazing things. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We will see you guys on the next episode of the Mint Door Podcast. Take care.
Bye.